The chamber was so large that clouds formed near its ceiling. Dr. Peter Holloway stood at the center of a platform that floated above an endless pit of darkness. Around him, rising in circular tiers that stretched toward the artificial sky, sat representatives from over 800 alien species. The Galactic Council had ruled the known universe for 60,000 years. And today, they would decide if humanity deserved to exist. Peter kept his hands steady at his sides. He was a xenarchaeologist, not a diplomat. 6 months ago, he had been living alone on an abandoned space station, studying ancient technology. Now he stood before the most powerful governing body in existence, accused of crimes that could doom his entire species. High Chancellor Moth, a creature made of flowing silver liquid, rose from the central throne. When it spoke, the words appeared directly in Peter's mind through translation implants. Human Peter Holloway, you are charged with unauthorized entry into Quarantine Zone 7. You violated the seal placed upon Darkfall Station 12,000 years ago. You activated systems that were meant to remain dormant forever. How do you answer these charges? Peter looked up at the assembled aliens. Some had scales. Some had feathers. Some existed as clouds of gas contained in special suits. Some were so strange that his human brain could not fully process their shapes. All of them were watching him with expressions that ranged from curiosity to disgust to fear. I answer guilty, Peter said clearly. I entered the station. I lived there for 6 months. I studied everything I found. The chamber erupted. Voices in 100 languages filled the air. The Silver Chancellor expanded to twice its size, a clear sign of anger. Silence, Moth commanded. The noise died instantly. Human, do you understand what you have done? Darkfall Station was sealed by unanimous council decree. The builders abandoned it for reasons we do not fully understand. Their technology is dangerous beyond measure. I understand perfectly, Peter replied. That is why I am here. Not to defend myself, but to warn you. Warn us? A reptilian ambassador named Lady Vex rose from her seat. Her black eyes reflected the chamber lights like mirrors. A species that achieved space travel only 30 years ago presumes to warn the Galactic Council. Yes. Peter reached into his jacket pocket slowly. Security drones hummed closer, ready to vaporize him if he made any threatening move. What he pulled out was a small crystal that glowed with soft purple light. Because I found this in the station archives, and it changes everything you think you know about why the builders disappeared. The crystal projected a hologram into the air above Peter's head. An alien face appeared, humanoid but wrong in subtle ways. Too many joints in its neck, eyes that seemed to look in multiple directions at once, skin that shifted between textures like living metal. This is a builder, Peter said, the most advanced species this galaxy has ever known. They mastered technologies that we still cannot understand. And 12,000 years ago, they vanished without explanation. We know our history. Human, Moth said coldly. You know the story you were told. Peter manipulated the crystal, and the hologram changed. What you do not know is why they really left, and what they discovered about Earth before they went. The hologram showed a small blue planet floating in black space. Earth, Peter's home. The world that the Galactic Council had been debating whether to welcome or destroy for the past 15 years. The builders watched humanity for 11,000 years, Peter continued. They sent observation probes when our ancestors were still living in caves. They documented our development from stone tools to nuclear weapons. And what they found terrified them so much that they chose to abandon this entire dimension rather than share space with us. The chamber fell silent. Even the gas creatures stopped their constant swirling. Impossible, Lady Vex said. The builders feared nothing. They had conquered every challenge this universe could offer. Exactly. Peter's voice dropped lower, forcing the aliens to lean forward to hear. They had faced hostile empires, cosmic disasters, artificial intelligences gone wrong. Nothing scared them. Until they met us. What could primitive humans possibly offer that would frighten a species like the Builders? Moth demanded. Peter smiled, but there was no humor in it. They ran projections, mathematical models of how humanity would develop over the next few thousand years. In every simulation, we caught up to them. And then we passed them. And then we asked questions that they had spent millions of years deliberately avoiding. What questions? Lady Vex asked quietly. Questions about what lies beyond the boundaries of this universe. Questions about whether reality itself can be reshaped. Questions that the Builders knew were dangerous to ask because they knew the answers existed. Peter paused. The Builders were wise enough to leave those doors closed. They understood that some knowledge is too powerful for any species to possess safely. But their models showed that humanity would not stop. We never stop. We push through every barrier. We break every rule. We refuse to accept that anything is impossible. The hologram shifted again, showing something that made several aliens cry out in alarm. A structure that looked like frozen lightning, stretching across space itself. A gateway that seemed to tear a hole in the fabric of reality. This is what the Builders built in their final years, Peter said. A door to somewhere else. A portal to dimensions beyond our own. They created it, but were too afraid to use it. Too afraid of what they might become if they stepped through. And this gateway is on Darkfall Station? Moth asked, its silver form rippling with what might have been fear. Yes, dormant for 12,000 years. Waiting for someone brave enough or foolish enough to activate it. Peter met the Chancellor's gaze directly. I had spent 6 months studying their records, learning their language, understanding their fears, and I have discovered something that will change everything. Which is? Lady Vex prompted. The gateway works. The Builders tested it successfully before they fled. They could have stepped through and become something beyond physical existence. Something with power we cannot imagine. But they ran instead because their projections showed what happened if humanity ever found this technology. And what would happen? Moth demanded. Peter looked around the chamber at the hundreds of species watching him. The most powerful beings in the known galaxy. Rulers of thousands of worlds. Masters of technologies that humanity could barely comprehend. We would not hesitate, Peter said simply. We would walk through that door without a second thought. And then we would come back for everyone else. The implications crashed over the council like a wave. If a human had truly accessed Builder technology, if he had learned to operate systems that the galaxy's greatest scientists could not understand, then everything they believed about the natural order of species was wrong. You are lying, Moth said. But its voice wavered. Peter raised his hand. His skin rippled, and complex geometric patterns began to glow beneath the surface. Patterns that matched Builder technology exactly. I did not just study the station, Peter said quietly. It studied me. It tested me. And when I passed its tests, it offered me a choice. Full access to Builder knowledge. Full integration with their systems. The chance to continue the work they abandoned. What work? Lady Vex asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Breaking through to the next level of existence. Peter lowered his hand. The Builders left that station as a test. If any species could survive there, could adapt to their technology, could prove themselves worthy, then they would inherit everything the Builders left behind. He looked up at the endless tiers of alien representatives. I passed the test, and now I am offering you a choice. Help humanity take the next step in evolution, or try to destroy us and fail. Because the Builders were right about one thing. His transformed eyes swept across the chamber. When humans decide to do something impossible, we find a way. Every single time. The council chamber erupted into chaos. But Peter stood perfectly still on his floating platform, waiting. He had delivered his message. Now the galaxy would have to decide how to respond. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, on an abandoned station orbiting a dead moon, ancient systems were waking up fully for the first time in 12,000 years. The test had been passed. The real work was about to begin. 3 weeks after the council hearing, Dr. Anna Reed stepped off the transport shuttle and saw Darkfall Station for the first time. The images had not prepared her. The structure hung in space like a frozen hurricane, its spiraling arms stretching over 60 kilometers from the central hub to the outer ring. The metal was so dark, it seemed to swallow light rather than reflect it. Beautiful, is it not? Peter's voice crackled through her helmet communicator. Wait until you see what is inside. Anna had spent 12 years as Earth's leading expert on alien artifacts. She had explored ancient temple ships and burial complexes across dozens of worlds. But nothing compared to this. The energy readings are impossible, she said. How is it still powered after 12,000 years? Builder technology does not run out of power. They built things to last forever. The shuttle docked at entry port 7. As the airlock cycled, Anna noticed the walls were not quite solid. They rippled occasionally, like the surface of disturbed water. Is that normal? She asked. The station is partly alive, Peter explained. He was waiting on the other side of the airlock, looking remarkably healthy for someone who had lived alone here for 6 months. It responds to thoughts and intentions. The builders did not construct machines. They grew them. They walked through corridors that seemed to rearrange themselves as they passed. Anna's instruments were going crazy, detecting materials and energy patterns that should not exist. How many others are coming? Peter asked. 20 researchers from 12 different species. Ambassador Vex insisted on joining personally. She said this was too important to leave to scientists. Peter's expression darkened. She is not wrong. This is no longer just about science. They reached a vast chamber that was somehow larger on the inside than the station's physical dimensions allowed. Floating at the center was a sphere of contained starlight, pulsing with rhythms that felt almost like music. This is the core, Peter said. The station's primary intelligence. It was dormant for 12,000 years. But when I proved I could survive here, it began waking up. The sphere pulsed brighter. Anna heard something that could not be sound in the vacuum-sealed chamber. A voice that was not quite a voice. Welcome, Dr. Anna Reed. You carry many questions. This pleases us. Anna's breath caught. It knows my name. It knows everything about you the moment you stepped aboard. Your genetic code, your memories, your deepest fears. I asked it not to read people without permission. It finds privacy amusing, but it respects the request. You have been communicating directly with Builder Artificial Intelligence? Anna could not hide her amazement. More than that, Peter held up his hand. Geometric patterns flowed beneath his skin like living tattoos. It has been upgrading me, teaching me to connect with its systems. The builders merged with their technology. That is how they achieved such advances. Before Anna could respond, alarms began shrieking throughout the station. The core's light shifted from white to crimson. Alert, the core announced. Multiple vessels approaching. Reptilian military configuration. Trajectory indicates hostile intent. Peter's jaw tightened. How long until they reach us? 17 minutes at current speed. Anna grabbed his arm. The reptilians? But Ambassador Vex was supposed to come peacefully. She is coming peacefully. These are not her ships. Peter was already moving toward a side corridor. The reptilian government is divided. Some of their military commanders believe giving humans access to builder technology will destroy the balance of power. They are not entirely wrong. The station seemed to sense the urgency. Walls opened passages that had not existed moments before, creating a direct route to what Anna understood was a control center. They emerged into a spherical room covered with crystalline projections. The Core's voice came from everywhere at once. Enemy fleet consists of 12 warships. Primary weapons are plasma cannons capable of melting through the station's outer hull in 4 minutes of sustained fire. If they achieve optimal attack formation, we will be destroyed in 12 minutes. Can we escape? Anna asked. The station can move. However, we are currently in planetary orbit. Calculating a safe course would require 73 seconds. We do not have that time. Peter stepped into the center of the room. Holographic controls appeared at his touch. Then we defend ourselves. Core, can you activate the station's weapons? A pause that felt heavy with meaning. Builder defensive systems were designed to deter, not destroy. We have never taken sentient life. You are about to start, Peter said grimly. Those ships are not coming to deter. They are coming to eliminate what they see as a threat to galactic security. Understood. However, full weapons require authorization from a builder-level intelligence. Current station commander designation, Peter Holloway. Biological integration, 34%. Insufficient for full weapons access. What do we need? Peter demanded. Minimum 50% integration. At normal progression, this would require 3 months. We have 14 minutes. The Core's light shifted in a way that suggested thinking. There is an alternative. Emergency Integration Protocol. Used by builders when immediate full access was required. Warning, the process is extremely painful. Risk of death or permanent brain damage is high. What are the odds of survival? For baseline builder biology, 78%. For unmodified human biology, 12%. For humans already partially integrated, 31%. Those are terrible odds, Anna said, better than 0. Peter looked at the tactical display. The enemy fleet was forming attack patterns. Do it. Emergency integration. Peter, no, but he was already moving to the center of the room. Crystalline structures grew from the floor like trees and wrapped around his limbs and body. They began pulsing with inner light. Final confirmation required, the Core said. This procedure cannot be reversed. You will either fully integrate or die. Acknowledge. Peter met Anna's eyes. Tell Earth what happened here. Tell them why I did this. And if it works, tell them I found out what comes next. Acknowledged. The light became blinding. Peter screamed. Anna watched in horror as the geometric patterns beneath his skin exploded outward, covering every centimeter of visible flesh. His eyes rolled back. Blood ran from his nose and ears. The crystalline structures pulsed faster and faster. 8 minutes until enemy firing range. The Core announced calmly. The patterns on Peter's skin began moving like liquid metal, reorganizing themselves into increasingly complex shapes. His body convulsed violently. Anna stepped forward to help, but energy fields blocked her. Do not interfere. Integration in progress. He is dying. Uncertain. Neural patterns fluctuating between human and builder configuration. 5 minutes until firing range. Peter had stopped screaming. His eyes were closed. The patterns on his skin had stopped moving, frozen in intricate designs. 3 minutes until firing range. Enemy vessels charging weapons. Then Peter's eyes opened. They were no longer human. They glowed with the same inner light as the Core, shifting through colors that had no names. When he spoke, his voice harmonized with the station itself. Integration complete. Authorization granted. Defensive systems activated. The crystalline structures released him. Peter stepped forward, moving with inhuman smoothness and precision. "Anna," he said, his voice mostly his own, with something else beneath it. "Hold on to something." The station shuddered. Power was building. Through transparent sections of the hull, Anna saw panels sliding open. Structures emerged that looked both organic and mechanical. "Enemy fleet, this is Darkfall Station," Peter transmitted on all frequencies. "Stand down immediately. You are targeting a protected builder facility." The response came quickly. "Human vessel, you are in violation of Council quarantine. Surrender or be destroyed." Peter looked at Anna. In his transformed eyes, she saw something that was still human, but had been added to. Enhanced. Changed. "They have made their choice," he said quietly. The enemy ships opened fire. Plasma cannons lit up space with streams of superheated matter. The beams never reached the station. They struck something invisible 50 meters from the hull and simply stopped. Their energy was absorbed and spread through fields that Anna's instruments could not measure. The ships fired again. Nothing happened. "Final warning," Peter said. "Stand down or face consequences." The lead ship launched missiles designed to punch through shields with sheer mass and speed. Peter raised his hand. The station responded. What emerged from the defensive ports was not weapons in any normal sense. They looked like tears in space itself. The missiles approached them and simply vanished. Not destroyed. Erased from existence. "Builder technology does not destroy," Peter explained, his voice eerily calm. "It edits. Those missiles now exist in another dimension." The enemy fleet hesitated. Their most advanced weapons had proven useless. "Stand down," Peter repeated. The lead ship fired directly at the core, visible through the transparent hull. A desperate move. Peter did not raise his hand this time. The station responded on its own. The defensive fields caught the plasma beam, contained it, and reflected it back with perfect precision. The energy struck the enemy ship's shields, overloaded them, and carved a non-lethal hole through its engines. Dead in space. Crew alive, but helpless. "Next ship that fires gets the same treatment," Peter said. After that, I stopped being polite. The remaining ships held position. Anna could imagine the calculations happening aboard those vessels. Everything they knew said builder stations were defenseless archaeological sites. What they faced now contradicted all their assumptions. Then, the lead ship transmitted a retreat order. Anna sagged with relief as the fleet began withdrawing. Peter lowered his hand, and the defensive systems retracted. "That was their moderate faction," he said quietly. "The extremists will come with more ships. Better weapons. We do not have much time." "Time for what?" Peter gestured at the core, now pulsing with renewed energy. "Time to figure out what the builders were really building. Time to open the gateway. Because the only way humanity survives what is coming is if we take the next step in evolution. And if we are not ready?" Peter looked at his transformed hands. "Then we become another warning story. Another species that reached too far and fell. But at least we will have tried." Somewhere in the darkness between stars, more ships were already gathering. The galaxy was not going to let humanity have this technology without a fight. And Peter Holloway, no longer fully human, was going to have to fight back. Ambassador Vex's claws clicked against the station floor as she walked beside Peter. Her black eyes studied everything with predatory focus. Behind them, 19 researchers spread through the corridors, their instruments extended, their voices hushed with wonder. "You look different," Vex observed. "The integration changes more than appearance. It changes everything." Peter led them deeper into sections he had never been able to access before. The walls opened passages at his presence, revealing chambers frozen in time. I can feel the station's thoughts now. Not words, but pure concepts. It is overwhelming. Can you still be trusted? Or has whatever you have become changed your loyalty to humanity? Peter stopped walking and turned to face her. The geometric patterns beneath his skin pulsed once. Ask me that question again in a month. Right now, I am still Peter, still human where it matters. But I can feel myself changing. The builder knowledge is not just information. It is a different way of thinking. The more I integrate, the harder it becomes to remember why I used to see things the way I did. Vex studied him for a long moment. Then we worked quickly. Show us what you have found before you stop being someone who wants to share it. They entered a chamber that stretched beyond the station's physical boundaries. Space folded in on itself here, according to principles Anna's instruments could not measure. Floating throughout the vast area were crystalline data nodes, thousands of them, each glowing with soft light. This is the archive, Peter announced. Everything the builders knew. Their entire civilization's wisdom, preserved perfectly. Art, science, history, philosophy, and most importantly, their technology. A researcher named Kel floated forward in a special containment suit. How do we access it? Touch any node. The station will determine what you can safely understand and present information at that level. It is not hiding anything. It is protecting you. Some of this knowledge is dangerous if misunderstood. Anna approached the nearest node carefully. It was roughly spherical, about the size of her head, glowing with soft amber light. When her fingers touched it, the light flared. Information flooded into her mind. Not words or images exactly, but pure understanding. She was seeing the history of builder medicine. Thousands of years of innovation flowing past in seconds. Disease elimination. Mind preservation. Biological immortality. And beyond that, she pulled her hand back, gasping. That was incredible. I understood things I do not have words for. Medical techniques that should be impossible. Now try to explain them, Peter said quietly. Anna opened her mouth, then closed it. The knowledge was there, clear in her mind. But when she tried to put it into words, the concept slipped away like water through fingers. I cannot. I know I understood, but I cannot translate it. That is the trap. The builders solved this problem through integration. Merging with their technology, let them hold concepts that biological brains alone cannot contain. But that integration changed them. Eventually, they stopped being the species they started as. Vex was examining a node that pulsed with violet light. Is this process reversible? For the builders, no. Whether it has to be that way for humans is what we need to find out. A researcher named Kira approached a node that immediately flared red. The moment her feathered hand touched it, she screamed and fell backward. What happened? Anna demanded. Warning rejection, the core explained. That node contains information about dimensional warfare. The psychological profile of researcher, Kira, indicates high probability of mental instability if exposed to that knowledge. Access denied. It decides what we are allowed to know? A physicist named Tom looked outraged. It decides what you can safely know, Peter corrected. Trust me, it is doing you a favor. I have accessed some of the red nodes. The knowledge is corrosive. It changes how you think about reality itself. Not everyone can recover. Vex's eyes narrowed. What kind of knowledge? The kind the builders used to build the gateway, to tear holes in the dimensional fabric and reach through to other planes of existence. Peter walked to the chamber's center, where a massive node floated alone. This one pulsed with colors that did not exist in normal space. This is what they feared most. The completion of everything they learned. The Gateway Project? Anna asked. Not just the gateway. The reason they built it. Peter placed both hands on the massive node. They were not running from humanity. They were running toward something else. Something they discovered was possible, but were too afraid to try. The node flared, and suddenly the chamber filled with holographic projections. The research team watched in wonder as builder history unfolded around them, an ancient species reaching for the stars. Millions of years of expansion. Technologies that seemed like magic. But then something changed. The builders discovered mathematical principles suggesting their universe was just one layer of a much larger structure. They found proof of other dimensions. Tom whispered, "More than that." Peter's voice echoed strangely. They found a way to access it, to step outside our universe entirely and exist in the space between realities. That is what the gateway does. It is not a door to somewhere else. It is a door to everywhere else at once. The projection showed builder scientists constructing massive structures, conducting experiments that bent space into impossible shapes. Then came the disasters. Research stations vanishing. Scientists going mad. Test subjects returning transformed into things barely alive. The gateway was unstable at first, Anna realized. Yes, but they eventually succeeded. Peter gestured, and the projection changed. It took them 400 years, but they built a working portal, one that allowed controlled access to the dimensional foundation, the basic layer of reality itself. And then? Vex prompted. Then they ran their projections, calculated what would happen if they actually used it. The holographic builders gathered around their completed gateway, a structure that looked like frozen lightning given physical form. They realized that passing through would not just let them explore other dimensions. It would fundamentally change what they were, transform them from beings bound by physical law into something else entirely. Gods, Kel said softly. Not gods, just different. Existing across multiple dimensions at once. Able to reshape reality at levels we can barely imagine. Essentially immortal. Essentially all-powerful within certain limits. The projection showed builder leaders arguing. Some wanted to proceed. Others urged caution. The debate lasted years. Then they detected Earth, Peter continued. A small blue world in a distant arm of the galaxy, home to a species that had just learned to control fire. The builders sent probes to watch. The projection shifted to ancient Earth, humans hunting with stone tools, building crude shelters, living short, brutal lives. For 11,000 years, they watched humanity develop. And the more they watched, the more terrified they became. Why? Anna asked. Peter looked at her, and his transformed eyes held something between admiration and fear. Because of our speed. The builders took 3 million years to achieve space travel. Humanity did it in 12,000. They took 6 million years to develop artificial intelligence. We did it in 13,000. Every major achievement they used as a measuring point, we reached exponentially faster. We learn quickly, Tom said proudly. You are unstoppable, Vex corrected. I have studied human history. You do not accept limits. When you face a wall, you break through it. When you encounter impossible problems, you solve them anyway. The builders ran projections, Peter continued. If they gave humanity their technology, within 500 years we would understand everything. Within 1,000 years, we would surpass them. Within 2,000 years, we would find the gateway ourselves. The holographic projection showed possible futures branching out. In every branch, humanity eventually reached the dimensional threshold. But unlike the builders, humanity would not hesitate. We would not spend centuries debating. We would walk through immediately. And then, the projection showed something that made several researchers cry out. Humanity spreading across dimensional space like a flood. pushing into every possible reality, transforming everything we touched. We would become a plague, Anna said numbly, or liberators, or explorers. It depends on perspective. Peter closed his eyes. The builders could not decide if humanity's drive would save or doom the multiverse. So they chose a third option. They walked through the gateway themselves, left our dimension entirely, sealed it behind them. But they left this station, Vex said. Left the instructions. Why? Because despite their fear, they could not deny another species the same choice they made. They built this place as a test. If a species could survive here, integrate with their systems, prove themselves worthy, then maybe they deserved access to the gateway. And you passed the test, Anna said. I passed the entrance exam. The real test is still coming. The Corps' voice filled the chamber suddenly. Warning. Incoming communication. Combined fleet formations have been detected entering this system. 487 vessels representing 19 species. Estimated arrival at attack range, 23 hours. The chamber fell silent. 487 warships. Nearly half the military might of the Galactic Council. They are serious this time, Vex observed. They are terrified, Peter corrected. And they should be. If we activate the gateway using builder specifications, if we achieve full transcendence, we would become effectively all-powerful. At least in this region of space. We could reshape planets with a thought. Stop stars from burning. The galaxy's power structures would become meaningless. But you are not going to do that, Anna said. Not a question. No, because that is not the human way. Peter smiled slightly. We do not want to become gods. We just want to survive, to explore, to understand. The builders forgot those simpler goals in their pursuit of ultimate power. He manipulated the holographic display, showing gateway designs. So here is what I am proposing. We modify the gateway. Instead of full transcendence, we aim for enhanced understanding. Access to dimensional knowledge without losing our physical forms. A bridge between normal existence and whatever comes next. Will it work? Kel asked. Maybe. The mathematics suggest it is possible, but the builders never tried it. We would be the first. Peter looked around at the team. And it is dangerous. Modifying the gateway introduces unknown risks. It might work perfectly. Or it might tear a hole in space that destroys this entire system. He brought up tactical projections showing the approaching fleets. Those ships are not coming to negotiate. The galaxy has decided humanity with builder knowledge is too dangerous to exist. We have 23 hours to prove them wrong. Or prove them right, Vex added darkly. Maybe. Peter looked at his transformed hands. But at least we get to make that choice ourselves. The builders ran from their decision. We are going to face ours directly. Anna studied the modified gateway design. What do you need from us? The gateway requires materials we do not have on the station. But the builders left manufacturing equipment in the lower levels. We need teams working constantly to build components. And I need to integrate further. The gateway construction requires precision at the quantum level. I am not enhanced enough yet. Further integration means more risk of losing yourself, Anna said. I know, but there is no other way. The team exchanged glances. 23 hours until certain death or surrender. Neither option acceptable. Then we build, Vex said firmly. Show us what to do. Peter nodded and began assigning tasks. But Anna noticed that the patterns beneath his skin were moving faster now, spreading further. He was changing more rapidly. She wondered how much of Peter would be left when this was over, and whether whatever replaced him would still want to save humanity. The next 20 hours were a blur. Research teams descended into the station's manufacturing levels, where builder machinery hummed to life after 12,000 years of silence. Exotic materials took shape according to Peter's specifications. Substances that existed in multiple dimensions at once. Metals that shifted between solid and energy states. Crystalline structures that stored information in the very fabric of SPACETIME. Peter did everything while undergoing further integration. Anna watched him change hour by hour. The patterns on his skin grew more complex. His movements became increasingly precise, less random. When he spoke, there were moments when his voice seemed to come from multiple places at once. He was losing himself. She could see it happening. "Peter," she called during a brief rest period. "Talk to me. Tell me something human." He looked at her with those transformed eyes. "I do not know what that means anymore. Human. The concept seems so limited now. Try anyway." He was quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, "I had a dog when I was 7. Named him Flash because he ran so fast. He died when I was 15. I cried for 3 days." A pause. "That memory is fading. I can access it in my mind, but the feeling behind it is dissolving. Soon I will not understand why I cried." Anna grabbed his hand. "It matters because you love that dog. Because loss hurts. Because being human means caring about things even when it does not make sense. Why?" Peter's question was genuinely curious. "Why should I limit myself to emotions that cause pain? The builder part of my mind sees this clearly now. Emotions are left over from evolution. Useful once, but not needed anymore. Because without emotions, we are just machines." Anna's voice was fierce. "Brilliant machines, but machines. Is that what you want to become?" Peter pulled his hand away. I do not know what I want anymore. The human part wants to protect Earth. The builder part wants to pursue knowledge no matter the cost. They are pulling in different directions." "Both are you," Vex said, approaching. "That is what integration means. You are not replacing your humanity. You are adding to it. The question is which part controls your choices." "Control," Peter repeated. "That is the word the builders used when they failed. They tried to control their transformation, tried to stay who they were while becoming something more. It did not work. Then do not control it," Anna said. "Accept it. Be both. Human and builder. You do not have to choose." "The galaxy will not accept that," Vex said quietly. "They are coming to destroy what they fear you will become. Proving you are partly human will not stop them." Peter looked at the incomplete gateway taking shape in the construction bay. Its framework was nearly complete, a structure that looked like crystallized lightning frozen in permanent display. Beautiful and terrible in equal measure. "Then we finish this," he said. "We find out if modified transcendence is possible. Because in 2 hours, those fleets will be in firing range. And defenses alone will not be enough this time." "How will the gateway help?" Tom asked. "Even if it works, that does not give us weapons." Peter smiled, and there was something unsettling about the expression. Who said anything about weapons? The builders never needed weapons. They had something much more effective. Which was? Anna prompted. Perspective. They could see all possible futures at once. Every choice, every outcome, branching out across probability itself. They did not fight their enemies. They simply chose timelines where their enemies lost. The implications silenced everyone. "You are talking about manipulating causality itself," Tom said. "Choosing your preferred reality from infinite options. Not choosing, observing, finding. The futures all exist already, layered on top of each other. The gateway lets you see them all and navigate toward the ones you prefer." It is not changing the past or future. It is selecting which timeline you want to experience. That is impossible, Tom said. That is transcendence. Peter turned back to the gateway. And if we can achieve even a fraction of that capability, maybe we can find a timeline where everyone survives, where humanity keeps the knowledge without becoming the monster the galaxy fears. And if that timeline does not exist? Vex asked. Peter's expression went blank. Then we will have to create one. The Corps' voice filled the station. Warning. Fleet formations entering attack range in 90 minutes. Multiple vessels charging weapons. Not enough time, Peter said. The gateway needs another 3 hours at current construction speed. Is there a way to speed it up? Anna asked. Yes, if I complete my integration now instead of gradually. Emergency protocol. But the survival odds are low, and even if I survive, there is a high chance I will lose enough of my humanity that I will not care about finishing the gateway anymore. Then do not do it, Vex said. We find another way. There is no other way. Peter's voice cracked, showing human frustration beneath the builder call. You think I want this? You think I want to become something that cannot remember why it cares about Earth? But that is the choice. Lose myself and maybe save humanity. Or stay myself and definitely watch humanity die. That is not a choice, Anna said. That is a sacrifice. What is the difference? She had no answer. Peter walked to the central archive node. Full integration takes about 6 hours normally. But the Corps says there is an emergency override. Forces the process to complete in 30 minutes. Survival odds drop to 8%. And even if I survive, there is a 73% chance I lose enough of my humanity that I abandon you all. Then we stop you, Vex said, her weapon already drawn. Peter looked at her without fear. That is what I am counting on. If I start to transcend completely, kill me immediately. Anna made that promise. You witnessed it. If I become something that is not Peter anymore, end it. Agreed? Vex's hand tightened on her weapon. Agreed. Peter took a deep breath, the most human gesture Anna had seen from him in hours. All right. Core, start emergency integration. Authorization, Peter Holloway. And Core? If I do not make it through this, make sure they know I tried. Acknowledged. The node flared with light that should not exist in normal space. Peter started screaming. The light around him became unbearable. Anna shielded her eyes, but even through closed lids she could sense it. A brightness that existed in colors the human eye was not built to see. The station itself was responding, its walls rippling in sympathy with whatever was happening to its commander. Neural patterns destabilizing, the Corps announced clinically. Integration at 67%. Human consciousness retention, 34% and falling. Peter, Anna shouted over the energy discharge. Hold on, remember who you are. If he heard her, he gave no sign. His body was suspended in the air now, lifted by forces that instruments could not measure. The geometric patterns beneath his skin had spread beyond his flesh, projecting outward in holographic complexity. Integration at 81%. Human consciousness retention, 19%. We are losing him, Tom said. Vex raised her weapon. Promised him we would stop this if he went too far. Wait. Anna grabbed her arm. Look at the gateway. In the construction bay, the incomplete structure was beginning to glow. Components were moving on their own, assembling themselves according to patterns Peter's transformed mind was projecting unconsciously. What would have taken hours was happening in minutes. He is building it through pure thought, Tom observed in awe. Exactly like he said, making reality reorganize itself. Integration at 94%. Human consciousness retention, 7%. Warning. Subject will transcend physical limits in approximately 90 seconds. Peter. Anna moved as close as she dared to his suspended form. Remember the dog. Remember crying for 3 days. Remember what it felt like to be human and care about things that did not make logical sense. The patterns flickered. For just a moment, Peter's eyes focused on her. When he spoke, his voice was barely his own. Cannot hold on. The knowledge is too much. I see everything. Every possibility. Every timeline. In most of them, we fail. But there is one thread. One single probability where we survive. Then reach for that thread. Anna urged. Not that simple. That timeline requires sacrifice. Requires me to complete the transcendence fully. To see clearly enough to guide you to the right future. No, Anna said firmly. There has to be another way. There is not. I have seen all the paths. This is the only one where humanity survives. His voice was fading, becoming something else. But I will not remember. Once I transcend, I will not care about humanity anymore. Will not care about Earth or you or any of it. Then we will remind you, Vex said, lowering her weapon. Transcend if you must. We will anchor you to who you were. Integration at 97%. Transcendence beginning. Cannot stop it now. Anna, tell Earth. Tell them yourself. Anna shouted. When this is over, when we have survived, you do not get to give up. You do not get to forget everything that made you human. Integration complete. Transcendence starting. The light became absolute. The station shook. In orbit, the approaching fleets detected massive energy spikes and increased their speed. Fearing what was happening below Dot, and Peter Holloway, human scientist, stopped being human. For a moment that stretched into eternity, he existed between states. Part physical, part dimensional, part pure possibility. He could see everything. Not just the station, not just the system, but reality itself laid bare. The underlying mathematics that made existence possible. The infinite timelines branching and merging Dot. It was beautiful. It was perfect. And it made everything he had cared about seem so small. Why had he worried about humanity? They were just one species among trillions. One brief spark. Protecting them was meaningless. Dot let them go. Let them fade. Pursue knowledge instead. Learn everything without the anchor of human emotion holding him back. Yes, that was the right path. He began to drift away from physical space, toward higher dimensions where thought became reality and limits were illusions. Flash ran so fast. The voice was distant, barely noticeable. A memory surfacing from dissolving brain patterns. You cried for 3 days when he died. Why would he cry? Death was just transformation. Nothing to mourn, because you loved him. Love. The word echoed strangely. The builder knowledge classified it as chemical reactions. Not real, but it had felt real. Had it not? Peter Holloway. Remember the choice you made. Not the builder choice. The human one. Human. He had been human once. Before integration. Before transcendence. He had valued things that the builder knowledge said were worthless. Family, friendship, home, birth. Blue planet floating in black space. Small, fragile, meaningless. On cosmic scales, but it was his meaningless planet. His small, fragile home. The realization hit him like a physical blow. Not insight from builder knowledge, but something deeper. Choice. He did not have to abandon humanity just because the builder part of his mind said it was logical. He could choose to value Earth even if it was arbitrary. Could choose to care about people even if emotions were just chemicals, because that was what humans did. They valued things because they decided to, Not because universal laws demanded it, that the builders had forgotten how to make arbitrary choices. They had optimized themselves out of free will. But Peter Holloway still had one human choice left. He chose humanity. The dimensional drift stopped. His consciousness stabilized at a point between full transcendence and normal existence. He would never be fully human again. But he was not lost to higher dimensions either. He existed in both states at once. A bridge between worlds. Peter opened his eyes. Anna gasped. They still glowed with inner light. But there was recognition there. Choice. "I am still here," he said, his voice harmonizing with itself across multiple tones. "Still me. Different, but me." "The gateway," Vex said urgently. "Can you finish it?" Peter looked at the partially completed structure. With his enhanced perception, he could see its quantum blueprint clearly. See exactly how each component needed to align. "Yes," he said, "but not the way we planned." He gestured, and reality bent. The gateway completed itself in seconds. Not the pure builder version, not the conservative human version, but something in between. A hybrid design that only Peter's unique state made possible. "It is done," he announced. "A gateway that allows temporary dimensional perception. You will not transcend permanently, but you can visit higher awareness. Understand things you could not before. And then return to yourself. Is it stable?" Tom asked. "Stable enough, probably." Peter smiled slightly. "Only one way to find out," the Corps' voice interrupted. "Warning. Fleet formations entering attack range in 3 minutes. Multiple vessels charging weapons." Peter walked toward the gateway's base. "Time to see if this works." He raised his hand, and the gateway flared to life. Through its opening, Anna could see impossible geometries. Spaces larger inside than outside. Colors that hurt to comprehend. Peter stepped through, and for one terrifying moment, ceased to exist in any normal sense. From his new perspective, Peter could see everything. Not just the station or the system, but all of reality laid bare. The approaching fleets were clusters of probability, their crews making decisions that branched into infinite outcomes. He could see their fears, their orders, their weapons charging with deadly intent. He could also see the timelines. Thousands of them. In most, the station was destroyed. In some, Peter himself caused that destruction by transcending fully and losing interest in physical forms. In a few, humanity escaped but lost builder knowledge forever. But there was one thread. One single probability where everything aligned. Peter reached for it with senses that had no physical equivalent. The timeline resisted. It required changes that should not be possible. Decisions not yet made. Actions that broke normal cause and effect. But he was beyond normal causality now. At least temporarily, he made the adjustments. Tiny pushes to probability. A slight delay in one fleet commander's targeting systems. A moment of hesitation in another's firing order. Small changes that rippled outward through cause and effect. Then he planted the seed. A message that would deliver itself to every ship at once. Not through communications, but directly into the minds of those who mattered. Fleet commanders. Political leaders. Anyone with authority to stop the attack. The message was simple. A single image pulled from Peter's transformed memory. A small blue planet. Fragile and beautiful. Home to a species that had been offered the chance to become gods and chose not to. Chose instead to remain themselves while reaching higher. Chose humanity over divinity. The message was not words. It was feeling. The experience of crying for a dead dog. Of loving something despite knowing you would lose it. Of valuing things because you decided they mattered, not because logic demanded it. The builders had lost this. Had optimized it away. But humanity still had it. Maybe that made them dangerous. But maybe it also made them worth keeping. Peter pulled himself back to physical space just as his time ran out. He stumbled out of the gateway, and Anna caught him. "Did it work?" she asked. "Look up," he said, through the station's transparent sections. They watched as the fleet formations slowed. Ships that had been seconds from firing held position. Communications channels lit up with urgent exchanges. Then, one by one, the fleets began to withdraw. "They're standing down," Vex said in disbelief. "All of them. I am receiving transmission from my government. They are calling off the attack. What did you show them?" Anna asked Peter. "The truth. That humanity with builder knowledge is not the threat they feared. Because we learned something the builders never did. Progress does not require abandoning what makes us who we are." The Core's voice carried something that might have been approval. Incoming communication from High Chancellor Moth. The holographic display activated. Moth's silver form looked different somehow. Less rigid. "Peter Holloway. What you just did, transmitting directly into minds across light years, that should be impossible." "Many things are possible from higher dimensional perspectives," Peter replied. "But I am not interested in using that ability as a weapon. I want to use it to communicate, to help species understand each other in ways that words cannot." "You showed us emotion," Moth said quietly. "Pure, unfiltered human feeling. Most species would have weaponized that, used it to manipulate or control. I used it to remind you why protecting life matters, even when it is not efficient or logical." A long pause. "Then the Galactic Council has agreed to stop hostilities. We wish to negotiate, to understand what humanity has learned, to determine if this modified transcendence is something other species could safely attempt. On one condition," Peter said. "The station and its knowledge become shared resources. Not human property, not council property. Available to any species willing to take the risk of integration. That is a dangerous offer. Progress is always dangerous. The choice is whether we face that danger together or separately." Another pause. "I will present your terms to the Council. But Peter Holloway, you are no longer fully human. How can we trust you still represent humanity's interests?" Peter looked at Anna, at Vex, at the research team who had stood with him through everything. Then he looked at his transformed hands. "Because I remember a dog named Flash, because I can still feel grief, even if the tears are less logical now. Because I chose to be both human and more than human." He met Moth's gaze directly. "The builders ran from their humanity when they transcended. I chose to carry mine with me. That choice makes all the difference." The transmission ended. The immediate crisis was over. But Peter knew it was only the beginning. Over the following weeks, representatives from dozens of species arrived at Darkfall Station. Some came with suspicion, some with hope. All came to see the impossible. A gateway that offered transcendence without complete transformation. Anna watched as volunteers from various species underwent partial integration. Not everyone could handle it. Some minds rejected the builder patterns. Others accepted them too well, losing themselves despite the modified approach. But some succeeded. A navigator who could suddenly see all possible routes through space at once. A scientist who could observe quantum interactions as clearly as humans saw colors. A soldier who understood strategy across probability itself, not gods. Not monsters, just people with expanded perception, still anchored to who they had been. Peter coordinated everything from the stations. Core. He had become a permanent fixture there, his body no longer needing sleep or normal food. Part of the station now, part of the knowledge it contained. "Do you regret it?" Anna asked him one day. "Becoming what you are?" Peter considered the question with his hybrid consciousness. The builder part analyzed optimal responses. The human part remembered what it felt like to be limited and uncertain. I regret what I lost. The simplicity of being fully human. The comfort of not knowing what lies beyond normal existence. But I do not regret the choice. Someone had to bridge the gap between what humanity was and what we could become. I am glad it was me. What happens now? Peter looked out at the stars through the station's transparent walls. Somewhere out there, ships were carrying integrated beings back to their home worlds. Seeds of change spreading across the galaxy. Now we find out if the universe can handle what we are becoming. The builders thought they had to choose between remaining themselves and achieving transcendence. They were wrong. You can be both. You can grow without losing what made you worth growing in the first place. And if some species misuse this knowledge, then we deal with it, together. That is what the Council is for now. Not to suppress progress, but to guide it. To make sure everyone has the chance to evolve without destroying themselves or others. Anna nodded slowly. The builders would not recognize what we are doing with their legacy. No, they expected whoever found this place to follow their path. Full transcendence or nothing. They never imagined someone would refuse that binary choice. Peter smiled, and it was a genuinely human expression, despite his transformed features. But that is what humans do. We refuse to accept limits, even limits on how we are supposed to transcend. A message arrived from Earth. Anna read it and laughed. What does it say? Peter asked. The United Nations wants to know if you plan to visit home. They are building a parade. Peter's smile faded slightly. I cannot go back. Not as I am. The dimensional energies around me would destabilize Earth's magnetic field. I could cause earthquakes just by existing in the wrong place. Can we bring Earth to you? Representatives, scientists, artists, politicians, anyone who wants to see what humanity's future looks like. A pilgrimage, Peter said thoughtfully, to an abandoned outpost that is not abandoned anymore, to the place where everything changed. Peter looked at the gateway, dormant now, but ready to activate at his thought. Through it, he had seen infinite possibilities. In many of those futures, humanity stumbled, made mistakes, caused harm, but in others, they did something extraordinary. They took the knowledge the builders had been too afraid to use and made something beautiful with it. Not conquest, not destruction, connection, understanding, growth without end. That was the future Peter had chosen to work toward, the timeline he had nudged reality toward during his moment in the gateway. Whether humanity would actually follow that path was beyond even his ability to determine. Free will meant uncertainty, meant the possibility of failure, but it also meant the possibility of choices the universe had never seen before. Actions that created entirely new branches of probability. Outcomes that even builder projections could not have predicted. That was what the builders had really feared about humanity. Not that we would become powerful, not that we would become dangerous, but that we would become unpredictable, wild, capable of anything, including things even gods had never imagined. Peter Holloway, the man who had moved to an abandoned alien outpost and discovered secrets that changed everything, stood at the center of a station that was no longer dead. Around him, beings from a dozen species worked together on projects that would have been impossible a month ago. Above him, the gateway waited. A door to everywhere at once dot behind him. Humanity reached upward as it always had. Curious, stubborn, refusing to accept that any barrier was truly impassable. The builders had been right about one thing. Humanity would not stop, would not slow down, would not accept limits on what they could become. But they had been wrong about what that meant. It did not mean destruction. It did not mean chaos. It meant hope. Hope that the universe was bigger than anyone had imagined. Hope that the journey was worth more than the destination. Hope that being human was not a limitation but a gift. A perspective that even transcendent beings might envy. Peter closed his eyes and let himself feel, just for a moment, what it had been like to be fully human. The uncertainty, the fear, the joy. He could still feel it. Different now, filtered through layers of enhanced perception. But still there. Still real. Still worth fighting for. The station hummed around him, alive with purpose after 12,000 years of silence. Ships came and went, carrying visitors eager to see what the future might hold. And somewhere in the archives, the ancient recordings of the builders played on endless loops. Warnings about humanity's dangerous potential. Predictions of catastrophe if the young species ever reached this far. They had been wrong. Not about humanity's power. Not about our drive to reach higher. But about what we would do when we got there. The builders had chosen to run. To escape into dimensions beyond physical existence rather than face what humanity might become. Peter Holloway had made a different choice. He stayed, and in staying, he proved that transcendence did not mean leaving your humanity behind. It meant carrying it with you into whatever came next. That was the real secret the abandoned outpost had contained. Not technology, not power, not even knowledge. Just a simple truth that the builders had forgotten and humanity had always known. The journey matters. The connections matter. The love matters. Even when you can see infinite possibilities. Even when you can reshape reality with a thought. Even when you have become something that defies ordinary. Understanding that you are still the child who cried for a dog named Flash. You are still human. And that is not a weakness. That is everything.